How's it going? I'm Jeff, and this is Bob, and this is Batson Enterprises, our take on trimming blank sections for repair. Why would somebody want to do this themselves?
In the warranty world, certainly if it's a manufacturer's defect or something like that, the warranty covers it. You send it in, I do it for free, kada-boom, kada-bing, it's yours. But you know, life happens. Car doors happen, ceiling fans happen, regular doors happen, and those unfortunately are not a warranty issue.
So we don't need to see those come back?
I don't need to see those to come back to prove that they're broken, but we do provide usually the opportunity for replacement. And when it comes to a replacement, personally I prefer to utilize an untrimmed tip section. The untrimmed tip section is exactly that tip section, but ran a little bit longer.
It's just one where the pattern for that particular rod blank just keeps going, and it's not trimmed at all. And that allows you to trim it back.
Perfect.
So it fits the male ferrule
Right.
or female ferrule in the case of like a tuna popper or something
Sure.
like that.
Why it is that that's important is because of the fact that we can, or you ideally, can match the original length of the rod that you have for that tip section. You can set it up, you can create that custom fit to, once again, it performing at the level that you received and that you expect, which with Batson is flawless. The tools that we're going to need for this: number one, safety glasses. From there, I prefer to use a cutoff wheel for my cuts. Masking tape, 2 wraps around to stabilize, makes it easier to mark. Good old-fashioned pencil. Conical rotary tool for honing, and sanding block.
And if you want to do it old school, hacksaw.
Old school, never doubt the hacksaw. So there's several ways to do this. Essentially, the easiest way and the most efficient way when you're going to trim a tip section is take the original tip section, tape it together so that it's continuous, and then you will take the replacement section, match it up next to it. My preference is always going to be an untrimmed tip section, because then you have the ability to fine-tune your cuts and you have the opportunity to make that repair as precise as the original componentry, so you have flawless performance in your rod. So what we'll do on this simply is, this is an untrimmed tip section for this model. First thing that we're going to do is we're going to want to tape our section where we're getting ready to cut. The important thing on this is, once taping, that you help immobilize any of the fibers that are going to be cut, preventing any additional fracture that may occur, causing a failure. So I like to do 2 tight wraps of masking tape.
And why are they tight wraps?
Again, it's a matter of immobilization, and it's a matter of stabilization. It's kind of like when you're dealing with a broken bone, you want to immobilize and stabilize so that it can actually be repaired correctly. Perfect. So from here, we'll line. You'll have you line those tip sections up. The tips are there. Now I'm going to go ahead and make a mark. Now, personally, for me, I prefer to make a mark about 1/8 of an inch to 3/8 of an inch further than where the actual cutoff is. That gives me a little room for error on the cut, and it gives me the ability to trim up effectively so that we can adjust it in.
So I have a question.
What's up?
And Bob's more of a master builder. I'm kind of an amateur. So I'm fishing, and I busted a tip, right? And my tip section's in 2 pieces.
Right.
How am I going to know how long to to trim that if I don't have another one to compare it, the original full-length blank to compare it to?
Oh yeah, because every now and then, I mean, it's horrible, but you can bust a tip section and bust the line, and into the drink it goes. You can always contact us. We'll send you the measurements for that replacement section if necessary. We always carry a control sample. That's how we do our quality control as well.
If you were trimming your own section, you could just email warranty and say, hey, I need the control sample length on the tip, so you knew how to trim that.
Right. I need to order a replacement tip section. If you have an untrimmed tip section, great. And what are the measurements because of the fact that I lost that tip? More than happy to help you on that as best I can.
Okay.
So
nice.
Perfect. All right, so now that we have this line marked, that's all we really need. There's a couple of different options. My personal preference is utilizing a cutoff wheel. Biggest thing is maintaining a high abrasive count. So you can use a hacksaw like we have here. Make sure the tooth per inch count is very high. An abrasive cutoff wheel like this is preferred.
So more teeth, Smaller teeth.
More teeth, smaller teeth, because of the fact that it's less impacting onto the carbon fiber strands as they roll. As long as you stabilize the tool and you stabilize the blank, a rotary tool like a Dremel cutoff wheel or something like that is certainly an option.
I've used a lot of Dremels to cut blanks, and it's not ideal. You can do it with a rotary cutoff tool, but ideally.
Again, this has a high abrasive content as well, so it cuts smoother and more effectively. You just don't want to sit there and be too slow on it, because that builds heat. That heat has an effect on the resin, and then you have issues on that. The other thing is if you don't want to go all this, carbon arrow saws, every now and then, maybe you can go to a local hardware, or you got a guy that has a hobby into archery, usually has a carbon arrow saw. For these blanks, that's perfect. This is a little overkill, but that's because of the fact that we have some bigger blanks that we have to do some work on when we're doing some customizing and some development.
So a carbon arrow saw, is that the complete unit, or is that just the blade?
Nope, that's the complete unit. You can go online, any search on that, or
Amazon maybe, something
Amazon
like that.
maybe, local archery supply, you know, any of those things. Okay, so I think we're ready to cut, and we'll go ahead and move this in. Quick tip too, I always use a paper towel or some soft material, so when it's sitting against the metal brackets, it doesn't scratch as you rotate. Because one of the things as we cut, we're gonna rotate so it doesn't make that loud snap and cause any kind of fiber loosening inside. Okay, so from here, we'll go ahead and close this in. We'll do a set mark on it again. When I'm doing a cut, especially with an abrasive wheel, one of the things that I'll always do is do that nice slow rotation opposite of the direction of the wheel. And the reason why is because when I mentioned before, you don't want to hear that loud crack. That's usually a fracture. On this one, you could hear that the blade stayed the same the entire time. That means there's no fracture. I don't have to worry about a separation of a strand inside.
And would you see that, you know, after you took the tape off, would it be easy to identify if there was a fracture in that ferrule?
Sure. Usually you can take a good look at it, give it a squeeze.
See if it ovals and it
exactly, because then there's a crush or there's a fracture that can go. But we're not taking the tape off yet. So now that we've got the cut, we knock the dust out of it. From there, we're going to neaten up the edge. So, you know, a handy dandy piece of sandpaper on a 2x4 block is really all that you need. I don't like the sponges and I don't like the soft rubber because of the fact that you can't get that nice crisp flat edge.
And this is one of the more advanced cuts out there. Like if you were cutting a butt section, it doesn't have to be quite as pretty.
Doesn't require
a cap on it.
No, this is when you're dealing with the building and everything else, obviously you're going to have thread on it.
Yeah.
Now, we deburr the inside before we go any further on this. And what I prefer from experience is I like to use a rotary honing tool. So this one's a bit large, but this one also works really well, on a side note, for the carbon fiber grips, right? Because you can use this to sit there and round off the edges of the carbon fiber grip, because carbon fiber is very hard. When you're setting it on a build, you have a risk of scratching the blank if you don't actually smooth that.
That's key, folks.
Okay.
Whenever you're doing carbon fiber grip reaming, you always want to deburr before you dry fit every single time you ream, right?
Absolutely.
It will scratch your blank.
Yeah, and that's horrible. Again, you can use a small rotary tool honing stone. You can use the larger one depending on the blanks that you traditionally work on. For
Where
this,
do I get those?
So again, local hardware store, Ace, Harbor Freight, any of these things will have these options. From here, just a few good passes on the inside. What we're doing is we're removing any loose fiber. We're deburring the inside of it so that there's nothing to hang up and pull away from the original manufacturer. So here we are there. We'll take our main butt section and we put it together. It fits to where it's supposed to be. It's nice and easy. Then what we'll do is we'll start giving it a shake, and we're going to listen for a knock and we're going to feel for a click. If we have a knock or a click, we need to adjust the length of our cut, and so we'll take off some more until we have that perfect fit.
And so you're holding the female or the male side?
I'm holding the female side of it, so the top section of it, I'm going to sit there and give that a shake. I like to rotate it a quarter turn, give it a shake, give it another shake. Okay, we're good. There's no click, there's no knock. We can finish the rest of the process.
Okay, what happens if there is a knock?
If there is a knot,
you take a
then-
little more back.
Right there, and that's exactly why I said I like to give 3/8 of an inch to 1/8 of an inch. Is that way I can always trim it back a little bit more, because we really don't want to cut this too far to where we may have to go the next, and that's a real rabbit hole we don't want to do, is have to trim the male section as well.
So you go in what increment at a time?
I usually go by 1/8 to 1/16.
Okay. And if
Okay.
you over trim, then you're into trimming the male ferrule to get that fit
Right.
back, and we don't want to do that.
We don't want to do
small
that.
increments, little at a time until there's no ferrule knot.
Right, and mostly, yeah, because of the fact if you're trimming the male, you're adjusting with wall strength, and you have to ferrule plug it, and at least with this, you get a chance to wrap thread over it and epoxy it to help us stabilize for future use.
Right.
Okay, so from here, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to remove the tape. Now, when we remove the tape, it's always from the tip down, and the reason why is if there's any strands of fiber on this, we want to pull it away from the blank. If you pull it up, you run the risk of having it run kind of like string cheese. If it can capture one of those strands and pull it up, we've ruined everything that we're trying to do.
So we're pulling.
We're going to pull towards, from the
Got it.
tip down. And we'll just go ahead and peel that off in this manner, right? And here we go. Easy reveal. Perfect. Okay, so no, we're not done yet. We still need to protect that, and the easiest way to protect it is, I'm going to swing it around real quick right here. What I'm doing is I'm setting this at pretty much a 30-degree angle. I'm going to rotate it a couple times so you can see that I've smoothed the lip on it, so any loose material that was there has been removed. It's now all still contained within the resin material that was
And
originally.
that's not going to splinter now that you deburred the outside as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's taken away. You can feel it. It's nice and smooth on either side. And once again, don't forget, we're going to wrap this. And like any builder, we know that we want to wrap it as close to the ferrule as we can so that we can bring it up and therefore minimize any splitting.
Right. Now, one thing we get asked a lot is, are we required to wrap ferrules on rain shadow rod blanks? And the short answer is no. Structurally, you can use a rod blank without a ferrule wrap on it indefinitely. There shouldn't be any structural issue with it. Is it expected by most customers that there is a ferrule wrap on it? Yeah. So it's usually, decorative.
And don't forget, it's a nice aesthetic too, because of the fact that some people prefer, when they do the build, to make an alignment mark on this ferrule and on the other segment.
point.
So that way it's an easy lineup for when you're ready to fish.
Yep.
Now, one thing we forgot to do that we talked about is, again, I'm going to go ahead and give this a good squeeze, a good tight squeeze, and you can feel that it is maintaining its shape. There's no flex, there's no bend, there's no squish. That means that I have 100% confidence in this section. We talked about utilizing the hacksaw as another option. Again, a fine-tooth blade is going to be crucially important because we don't want to grab, rip, and tear at the fibers that are running lengthwise on this blank. But biggest thing, stabilize your blank so it doesn't have the wiggle on it. It'll be a lot easier. Second part is when we apply the hacksaw, the teeth are going forward, we're going to back draw each time. And you can see, we'll start going through that wall, okay? This is not a race, slow and steady, nice and easy. The nice part about having the tape as well is not only does it stabilize, but it also provides the opportunity that if your hacksaw comes out and bounces, it's bouncing on the tape, it's protecting that blank so that you don't have to worry about buggering up the finish in that area. Real close to the completion on this, so nice and gentle. Had it come loose, and we'll finish that with just a quick cut just like that. So again, we have that opportunity, we have that ability that we can sand it flat, deburr the inside, nice and easy, and go with our test fit.
So, Bob, how many of these tip sections would you say that we trim a year? Do we do a lot of these?
No. Realistically, I think that ideally I probably maybe have 8 tip sections that I have to replace for either warranty or just accidents happening. Maybe 8 for a year.
Per year?
Per year. I mean, the failure rate is really, really low on these.
Right.
So,
Yeah, rain shadow blanks, less than 1%. It's pretty much the best in the industry. So Bob, why wouldn't somebody, just want to send this in? Why would somebody want to trim their own tip section for replacement?
Well, certainly that's an option, but shipping's expensive. So number one, you're already a rod builder, or you had somebody build this for you. There's somebody that's familiar with this process. Save the shipping. Save the hassle, save the time, get that thing squared away, and you back fishing as soon as you can.
Right, because in a Batson warranty process, the customer pays for shipping back to Batson. Batson
Exactly.
fits it if necessary, whatever, gets a replacement, and then shipping is covered back to you with the standard warranty fee.
Yes.
So it saves you time, saves you a ton of money in shipping, and get you back out on the water quicker.
Absolutely. If you have questions, you're always welcome to email me at warranty. I'm happy to set you through with this process. I actually have a written instructional as well that I'm more than happy to ship to you via email, so that way you have step-by-step instructions on how I perform these techniques. If I can do it, you can do it, and I know you can do it.